I've got my partner in crime here. We're even kind of matching after she came back from the groomer with her little bow. And we're going to talk about the 3 things that can ruin your scene. The building block of your book, the scene, is something that you can totally ruin without even realizing it. And then, of course, you lose the reader, the book is done, and they're moving on to somebody else, which is definitely not what you want to have happen. The number one thing is you need to have a goal for every single scene, and that feeds into number 3, which is super vital. And I'll get to that in a second. When I sold my second book, that's when I ran into a problem with this and realized what I was doing wrong. A lot of you know my story where I wrote 10 books in 8 years before I sold my first one. But you may not know that I had a lot of trouble with my second sold book. So I sold my first book, yay, and the editor wanted another one. But she didn't like any of the ideas of the other 10 books that had been rejected all over the publishing world. So I had to come up with a new idea. And I just had like a one-liner I'd written on a cocktail napkin. And I said, survivor in an RV with the hero and heroine both wanting to win the RV. That was a great high concept hook, and she loved it because it had a whole lot of conflict in it. When I started writing that book, I got super stuck like about halfway through. I had no idea what to write next, and the book just seemed to just stall, and there was nowhere to go. The reader's just watching them sit around in a Winnebago. Not exactly interesting. That was when I had this light bulb moment, and if you read that book, you will see that there's a moment I mentioned light bulb moment in there, and it's exactly when that all came together for me. You have to have a goal for every single scene for the point of view character. Even if it's something as simple as moving to Idaho. If you're going to move to Idaho, you've got to sell your house, you got to find another house, you got to pack the boxes. There's a lot of steps involved. When a character has a goal, they have to have a lot of steps to take to accomplish it. It's something I've shown you on the plot chart and something I've talked about in all of my plotting videos. And that goal has to feed into the overarching book length goal. So I had to go back and restructure it so that the characters had different steps they had to take in order to win that RV. Like when you watch the actual show Survivor, it's not about who sits on the island the longest, it's about who accomplishes this challenge.
We are down to 6.
There's a bunch of steps that the contestants have to take in order to win Survivor. Once I realized that, I had the first part of what could go wrong with my scene, but I still didn't have the second part, and that took me a little bit longer to figure out. One of the things I talk about a lot in my character videos is that characters have to grow and change throughout the book. They have to basically become better human beings. That just doesn't happen overnight. Not for you, not for me, and not for the characters. Every single scene should be presenting the character with a challenge. Both physical, some kind of thing they have to overcome or accomplish, and here's the key, emotional. They have to have some kind of fear or insecurity or anxiety that they have to conquer at least a little before the end of the scene. And hopefully you can tie it in with the physical action they have to take. So let's say the character has to go track down this witness in a very sketchy neighborhood, and she's a super nervous Nellie and she really doesn't want to do it. So she has to overcome her fear of being in danger and just go to interview the witness. And when she does that, she has a teeny tiny growth moment. And what the reader sees is the character getting stronger and growing and changing, and they're like, yeah, you go girl, you've got this. They get excited about your character and they can't wait to see what your character does next. Number 3 is that at the end of your scene, things have to get worse in some way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean that you have to have a tornado end every single scene or have your character walk off a cliff. Things have to get worse either emotionally or physically. Let's say nervous Nellie goes to interview that witness, but the witness has disappeared. Or worse, the witness is dead. So now she's in a dangerous situation, and what's worse is her witness isn't even there to get the information. If you look at the movie Taken, and I know I talk about it a lot, but it's because it's a really linear, easy to understand plot. And every time Liam Neeson gets closer to finding his daughter, things get worse. Lots of things go wrong. Every time things get worse, what happens is the reader is really invested in the outcome. The reader really wants to know, how on earth are they going to solve this one? I can't tell you how many movies I have sat there and watched and thought, I have no idea how they're going to make this work out because it seems impossible. That's the kind of thing that keeps your reader hooked. So as I figured out that I had to have a goal for every scene, I also figured out that the character had to grow and change by conquering some kind of fear or physical obstacle. And then things had to somehow get worse. And when things get worse, it forces the character to take another action. Things getting worse creates something called tension. And tension is what keeps us glued to the page. If the reader knows that the bad guy is just sitting behind that door, or that house is about to fall off a cliff, the reader's going to keep turning the pages, because even if the character's all happy, yay, we won, they know something more is coming. One of the questions that I get all the time is, I'm writing a romantic comedy, or I'm writing something light and funny. How can that happen? I just watched Fall Guy, which was really hilarious.
You're a stuntman. Nobody's going to notice you. That's your job. No offense.
I mean, some take it.
And that is a comedy with a little bit of danger and everything mixed in. And if you look at every single scene, things are getting worse. And it is a comedy. It's still a light movie, but the stakes keep getting higher and the tension keeps getting higher. Study the other comedies that you see, and you can see that things still get worse. They don't have to get to the somebody's dying level of worse, but there's definitely something that goes wrong. So to teach yourself how to do this, analyze other movies and books and write down, what is the character's goal for this scene? What kind of growth moment did they have to have emotionally or physically? And then how did things get worse, either emotionally or physically, or even better, both? If you want more on how to really set things up correctly, then I highly suggest watching this video, which is all about writing a really strong first chapter. Because if you can get off to a strong start, you have got your reader hooked and they can't wait to see what happens next.